Hey guys, it's Maple here once again, and this time around, a bit of a bright lights warning. It will get a bit crazy on the screen from time to time. This build here, currently with an Accelerate and Echoing Shrine, is an attempt to make alt qualities do some pretty crazy shit, and it is kind of an attempt I've had before. So it's Kinetic Bolt with alt quality that gives you attack speed for stacking cast speed. Now, the more alt quality of this you stack, the higher the quality goes, the better percentage of attack speed you get from your cast speed. So currently this is not an Ashes build, Ashes of the Stars. It was planning to be, but in the end I don't know, opted out of it, and it's just using Diala's chest, and my current gem quality is 90, meaning I get 225% of my cast speed as attack speed for the skill. And the idea was to try and hit the attack speed rate cap, which I think is 30. The only way that's going to happen at this stage is by using the Soul Eater gloves, or in this sort of a situation with Accelerate and Echo Shrine. I am getting up to 15 to 20 attacks per second with this setup, and it's become just a bit of a fun meme. It's not really a super serious build because it took quite a bit of work to put it all together and have a really low life pool, so it's squishy as fuck, and the entire playstyle revolves around kill shit quickly and from a distance. So I mean, I don't die too often or anything, but it's certainly possible and capable of happening, given that the max hit I can take is like 3k. Yeah, you could make a much more well-balanced build with this, I think. But this attempt here went kind of lopsided on the cast attack speed, and it was I really actually didn't know how to build this to begin with. I wanted to tackle the Kinetic Bolt alt quality. Once again, I did it once during Heist League when it first came out, and it was a bit of a half-assed attempt, not too much investment and all that. I wanted to tackle it again, and there were a lot of different ways I thought I could do it. So it could be cold dexterity stack with synthesis base, same with a fire strength stack synthesis base. You could do int lightning stack. We could have gone just pure kind of how I did in the end, Trinity, and aura stacking is what I ended up doing. Could have done poison, I thought was potential. Impale was maybe potential. Ultimately, I landed on this, so I'm just trying to beef up the anger and the wrath aura, and I'll show you that in a second with all the gear. And it's the first time I've really tried to do that as well. Either way, it turned out pretty good. Like, I've got almost 20 million DPS, I think, which is a bit silly for what is happening with this build, but I do think it could be a bit more well balanced. So far it's been pretty fun to play, and just very interesting with some of the interactions, as some of the alt qualities that you can put in the chest that give you even more quality stacking become pretty damn different. So I am using cast on crit in this build in the chest socket, because the alt quality gives you 20% more attack damage. It doesn't have to be linked to a spell. And then with the Dialas, another 30% quality means that gem gives 50% more attack damage. So it's a 50% more gem, which basically just doesn't exist these days. As well as that, using alt quality chance to bleed, which is in the end 50% more added damage from sources, and that ends up being better than a awakened elemental damage with attacks. So it's pretty special as well. And then an alt quality inspiration to take our mana cost all the way down to 1, and that means I can spam quite a bit more indefinitely. Not fully indefinitely, because I have 0 mana regen, like literally 0, and I'll show you the reason for that in a sec as well. But it's been pretty fun getting an Accelerate Shrine, a Echo Shrine. It hasn't happened often, like basically twice, 2 or 3 times, and I've shown you throughout these clips when it does happen. But Kinetic Bolt itself, bit of a weird skill, and not really like too good usually, because it's tough to fix single target, and There's no really super special overlapping mechanic. Supposedly there was, but that's been kind of fixed, I think, is what I've been told, because you could like do volley with it or some shit, and then it could overlap better. Either way, with this sort of silly mechanic scaling, we can get up to some pretty crazy DPS numbers. I think there could be a much larger build in here somewhere still, but this is my attempt for now. And with that said, let me go ahead and show you how I've built it. There's a character level 90 Deadeye, more APS than FPS. Yeah, I was kind of thinking that with the right amount of stacking, this could actually break my sort of frames in a way that it wouldn't be playable, especially with sniper's mark interaction, but it's not that bad in the end. It is, a bit messy, and it's not good for bit rate. And there's also a MTX, which I didn't showcase throughout the video, which just Ghost Flame Kinetic Bolt, but looks a bit just like a sploogey mess in the end. So I basically never use it for the purposes of any real gameplay. So we are based around this chest, which did get a bit of a buff and is pretty damn good for doing lots and lots of different quality shit. So it can, a lot of the time, circumnavigate Ashes of the Stars, so you don't need it in a build, or it complements it and you can have even more stacking. So currently with this thing, as you can see here, we have 30 quality from the item itself, so that boosts us to 50 quality. If you then have a level 4 enhance in a red slot, that turns into a level 6, and that's another 40 quality. So we've got 90 quality on this gem. If you then get a perfect Ashes, you can go up to 120 quality all of a sudden. And in my current setup, I was contemplating using an Ashes because I wanted to, just for one build for, memes. But it's very close to the current amulet I'm wearing. I bought this thing for, I don't know, a divine, maybe less than that, something like that. And it's got 50 cast speed, which for me is worth, 100 plus attack speed, and then a bunch of multi. And Ashes is about the same DPS, but then it's got a bit more utility in that it does a few other things too. So for pretty much a free amulet compared to an Ashes, which is like 20 divines, I figured I'd still just, hang on to this thing and we'd be sitting at 90 quality. Unfortunately, Ashes doesn't do quality for support gems, so it doesn't have any extra benefit in the rest of our chest, because other things we're doing, like I said, chance to bleed, spot skills have 50% more added damage, so that applies from all of your added damage. So we are stacking lots of damage from anger and wrath and bit from wand and stuff like that. So it ends up being actually one of the best support gems we can use, and we just ignore that fizz portion altogether. We then have the anomalous cast on crit. I didn't think this would work. I thought you'd need like a spell on the other side of it to make it work, but it adds 20% more attack damage for the quality. With the extra 30 goes up to 50, and yeah, it straight up works. You can see my DPS, and you can see that it attaches 600k there, goes straight up to 930, and it has the little plus icon, so it definitely works. We then have Trinity, which doesn't do anything special. There's no real cool alt quality for Trinity. Bit of extra damage. The Enhance obviously goes up a couple levels, and then the Inspiration, which does have reduced mana cost, so that goes even higher. And then 60% reduced mana cost is basically what we get there. Combine that with reduced mana cost on the hat, and I've also got a Watch Your Eye, which at this point just does -5 for clarity, but it goes from 5 to 10. You can get stuff from rings, you can get even higher on this, you can spec into some mana, whatever. It's a bit of a balancing act, however you want to do it. If you want to get to this type of mana cost, and we're down to 1 mana, which is somewhat important if you still want to use Inspiration, but you could even just go down to like 0 mana with rings and stuff, or Amulet, with the Watch Your Eye, with you could go to EB, just Eldritch Battery, but then you got to fix Energy Shield mana in that regard. Either way, I'm basically down to 1 mana cost here, so that I can spam pretty indefinitely. But currently with this amulet, which has -130 reduced mana regen, that means I have actually no mana regen whatsoever. So I need to actually hit things with my mana leech and then get mana back. As you can see, currently not getting any mana. Go home, we're done. So I do have mana leech coming from the wand node here, and yeah, we need to hit stuff. I imagine pretty much no one else is going to be in the same situation because chances are you won't have 130 reduced mana regen, whatever. Grabbed another ring here, which has some cast speed. Picked this one up like a divine as well, or some shit. 48 cast speed, which then turns into a bunch of attack speed thanks to this thing. So we've got 225% value. We've also got increases and reductions to spell damage applied to attack at 200% on Kinetic Bolt. It doesn't stack with anything else. Crown of Eyes, you can only have one source of this thing. So we also stack spell damage at a pretty good degree. So bunch of attack speed, or cast speed and accuracy here, and then this is a ring that I've had for a while just for leveling and shit, but I ended up keeping it just because it solves resist a little bit, but it's really nothing special. Realistically, I'd buy a bunch of lakes and just try and make my own cast speed ring, buy a bunch of, reflection lakes if I was serious about like getting better life and min-maxing this sort of shit, but I think it's fine, whatever. It works how it works. I am then I looked into just some aura stacking, so +1 socket gems, +2 aura gems on boots, and I looked around lots of boots. These are like 30C. There's plenty that are very usable at like 10C to 1 divine price range, and with that I then wanted to put level 21 anger, 21 wrath, and then attach level 4 empower, and that yielded me level 28 auras, which meant I could kind of go a bit heavy on some aura stuff. So just, the usual charisma over here, influence over here, and then one little aura node here, and also sovereignty. So basically most of my damage is coming from these two auras. Without the +1/+2 here, I lose 15% DPS, so it's not the end of the world to just have real boots instead. But I thought it was bit different, bit fun to try and make this happen. So that's where a lot of my damage is coming from, and then also just wand. So I did buy a couple of fractured wands. They weren't very expensive anyway, and then just rolled it with some essences until some good shit happened. My first wand was like, I don't know, 10C or some shit, and it got me through most of the game. And then a level or so ago, I tried to recraft to get a better one because I wanted more spell damage, and I was just slamming essences until I got spell damage. It did take a while, like, I don't know, 300-400 essences, some shit like that. Got spell damage, locked the prefixes, and then went with double damage focus, and then just crafted attack speed. We'll get quality attack speed as well for a bit more attack speed, and that'll be it. Bit of mana reserve there, and stuff. Gloves have attack and cast speed while focused, so that's 50 attack speed and then also 50 cast speed that gets turned into attack speed. So the focus button here is about 150 attack speed. Like I said, you do have the Soul Eater gloves as well that you could try and force into the build, but it's just so like rampy. Yes, it's ultimately going to be probably better on a lot of endgame fights, but it takes a while to stack it up, like 10 seconds to get better than this, I think it is, and that's 10 seconds of making sure it's constantly being attacked and you're within range of these bosses and shit, which supposedly isn't that good, and then a lot of bosses have phases and all that, so I don't know if it's actually worth it, but I decided not to go with that. It's only going to be for boss fights anyway. So yeah, just gloves with the focus, and I've got to remove that chaos for intimidate still as well. Then just a belt that has turned it into a hunter belt. Just kept using harvests that did cast speed on them, or caster on them, which would constantly give cast speed during flask effect. And then we've got flask effect, silver flask here with cast speed on there as well. And the shield, once again, just grabbed a fracture and just did caster rerolls on the harvest bench until got a good spell damage roll, locked prefixes, veiled it, it's got some resists, and then crafted double damage focus. And that's where we're at. That's basically all the gear. We then got nothing too special. Have to basically life tap everything because I've got almost no mana. Grace level 21, so I do have some evasion. Like, it's not bad. I don't get hit too often, but when I do, it kind of hurts. A big wanding jewel there just for a bit of extra damage. It's not really even that good at this point, but why not? And also a Vile Haste. So Vile Haste you basically get 2 double dipping from as well. Bunch of attack speed, bunch of cast speed, pretty good stuff. And then as for the passive tree, it's a Deadeye passive tree. There's some stuff I had to go out of my way to get, like suppress capped, which is a bit of a journey. We've got lethality for crit. We can take some knockback on crit here. I've yet to do it, but something I might want to toy around with. I get frenzy charges from the Mark Ascendancy. The Watcher Eye, basically just for crit multi, but then also helps fix mana. Ailment effect and ailment effect because I am using Secrets of Suffering. I pretty much need it for Scorch. Brittle, yes, as well, but it's mostly, because I really need some extra penetration since I'm trying to stack like all three things at once. Wand wheel, and this wheel here, basically just picked this up for 150C, I think it was. A 12 passive spell damage, since that gives us 20 damage per node, but then also increased effect and also cast speed. So every single one of these nodes is 13 spell, 4 cast speed, and also helps fix my res. So these are all individually pretty big nodes, and then this guy here just helps a bit with the reserve and introspection as well. Oh boy. And as for the Ascendancy, Far Shot, 2 additional proj, so we don't have to use any LMP or anything. Gathering Winds and Focal Point as always. Pretty interesting stuff. Been a very fun build to put together and try and figure out. And we can go even harder than Ashes. Just, I don't know, overall, some real cool alt quality stuff out there. This chest is pretty damn cool. Even with, a good +1 on it or some shit, so double corrupting can take it to another level. But definitely some interesting shit out there. I think there's got to be an extremely large build out there with this thing. Like I was thinking maybe you could also go a Necromancer and get Corpse Pact stacks off of that. With some, Spell Slinger like VD. So a bit of a hybrid thing. I think there's got to be an extremely large build out there with this. Maybe I'll still toy around and see if I can find another one. But for now, this is my humble attempt. Maybe got you thinking about other attempts. Thank you very much for watching. See you guys next time.